Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back. Another episode of the Apartment Gurus coming at you. And I've got a special guest on today that I'm really excited about learning from and in hearing his story. He's got some great stuff going on that we're going to talk about. Chris Naugle is my guest on the show today. And Chris was a pro snowboarder, which kind of a man after my own heart there. As many of you know, I moved to Utah in 1999, specifically to ski in the Wasatch Mountains, and have been here ever since and skiing ever since and love it. That's my number one passion. So Chris went from being a pro snowboarder to a money mogul, and he's dedicated his life to being America's number one money mentor. With a core belief that success is built not by the resources you have, but how resourceful you can be. His success and national acclaim have come in large part to what he's learned firsthand from seeing a better way to wealth creation and preservation than he learned growing up. Boy, I can relate to that. Chris has built and owned 19 companies, with his businesses being featured in Forbes, ABC, House Hunters, and his very own HGTV pilot in 2018. He's currently the founder of the Money School and money mentor for the Money Multiplier. His success also includes managing tens of millions of dollars in assets in the financial services and advisory industry and in real estate transactions. As an innovator and visionary in wealth building and real estate, he empowers entrepreneurs, business owners, and real estate investors with the knowledge of how money works. He's also a recognized speaker, author, and podcast host. He's spoken to and taught over 10,000 Americans, delivering the financial knowledge that fuels lasting freedom. So, Chris, it's awesome to have you on the show. I guess I got to ask you first question. Do you still snowboard?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's actually funny. Just last year, I'm in Utah so much. It's like my second home. Yeah. And the only place I rode home one time, and every other time I rode was either Brighton, which is kind of my favorite resort out there. And then I also rode a few days over at Sundance. I almost forgot the name of it, but I had such a great time. I'm on the hill quite a bit, and I'm still young at heart, man. Probably much like you. When I get on the snow, I forget I'm 45 years old. I snap into like this child, and I see the rails, I see the jumps. It's just like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy. And until you get hurt and realize, whoa, it takes a little longer to heal these days.
It does that. Yeah, that's so true. That's the biggest difference I've found so far. I'm 49, so I've got a few years on you, but yeah, I mean, I still ski like I did when I was 30, 35, but I don't recover the way I did like when I was 30, 35. So there are some differences there, but that's exciting, man. Where are you, aside from Utah, your second home, where are you often, or where are you normally?
Yeah, my home base is Buffalo, New York. This is where I grew up. And, I stayed here because I'm an only child and I'm all my mom's got. So family first. And that's kept me pretty grounded here. But a plane can take you anywhere.
Yeah, so true. And Boston's got, or Buffalo's got an international airport, and
We do.
you've got the ability to fly to Utah or like you said, anywhere. So that's super exciting. Well, awesome. Chris, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit more about your background, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, and I'm sure the listeners would as well. Kind of, what makes you tick, and how other than snowboarding, and kind of how you got to where you are today, being a leader in the money world.
Yeah, my upbringing was like so many other people in America. I didn't grow up in a family with money. I grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mom raised me, and we grew up in a little 2-bedroom, 700 square foot house that was home, and still is where my mom lives. But the one thing growing up the way I did was where I couldn't just ask for things and get them. I had to work for things. I had to dream up things. And my mom taught me exactly that. She taught me to be a dreamer. I don't care if it was dreaming up that BMX bike. And how it always started for me is I was always an artistic kid. I would just draw pictures of everything. In school, I'd be doodling on the trapper keepers of the dirt bike or the 4-wheeler or the skateboard that I wanted, that I just was just out of reach. And my mom taught me a really important thing as a young child. When she wanted things, she had to save up for them. And I know that is the norm for most, but she would save in a glass jar, and I would witness this. She'd bring home her spare change from groceries. She'd drop it in this jar, and I'd watch this jar fill up, and that was fascinating to me. And then me and mom would sit down, we'd roll the coins, and then she would buy the lawnmower or whatever it is she needed. And I don't know why that was so fascinating. I think it was just the first time I saw how money actually started to work, and how you would save and anticipate this thing. And you'd almost like kind of get super pumped about the lawnmower. And I know nobody really gets excited about a lawnmower, but we did. And when she actually brought it home, it was just such a gratifying thing. And I'll never forget, my mom got me this little black box. I literally have it in an office down the hall here. And it was just had a little slide top. And I used that to save the money from when I would go out, mow lawns, shovel driveways, work at the horse farm down the road. And I remember one day my mom took me to this shop called Hebler's to look at a dirt bike. Now, I had been fixating on this dirt bike probably for the better part of a year and a half. And I didn't think I had enough money to buy it, but she wanted me to just go ride it. I'm like, yeah, of course, let's go. But when I got done riding it and I picked the one I wanted, which was a KX 125 at that time, I remember her telling me, would you like to take it home? That was the most confusing thing, because I was like, it's almost like a trick question, right? Like, mom, careful, mom. Like, yeah, of course I want to take it. And she said, well, you've saved enough money. We can bring this home today. And that seriously was the most unbelievable feeling I think I ever had as a child. Now, I tell that story just because that sets up the rest of my life. Yeah. As I went through life, I did what most people did. I worked regular jobs, worked on a farm at 14, at 16, got a job at a restaurant. But the job at the restaurant was different than any other job, or whatever you call those little hobbies that I did back as a child. They treated me so poorly. I think the guy just tortured me. I really do, looking back at 16. And I remember the day, it took a while, but I was clinically depressed because I felt like I could do nothing right. My school grades dropped and everything. That's how bad it got because of this job. And finally, like I just went in, and one day I just quit. But I wasn't the type of kid that was a quitter, because I knew mom, would be like, oh my God, you quit your job. How are you going to afford to pay for the car and the insurance? And those are the only two things I think I had. And I needed a plan B. So for weeks I had dreamt up this idea that I'm going to start printing t-shirts with my art teacher, Mr. Mahalski. We made all the shirts for their school, and I'm going to sell them out of my backpack. And that's going to be my job. In other words, like when I came home, I said, Mom, I'm going to start a business in the basement called Fat Clothing Company, PHAT. So at 16 years old, I don't remember the month, but 1992, I became an entrepreneur. But I want to be clear for your audience. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. Like, to me, this whole thing that we would call a business today was just a means to pay for my car, the fuel, and the car insurance. That was it. We didn't have cell phones back then. We had pagers, if even then. And that business gave me the ability to keep dreaming, and I would print shirts. My friends would doodle up graphics, and I'd be like, oh, let's put that on a shirt. Now, all of a sudden, my friends became my sales force, because it was their design. So they felt compelled to sell it out of their backpack. So now I had like probably 5 guys or 6, maybe even, running around school with hats and sweatshirts and t-shirts in their backpacks instead of books. and we were just peddling shirts, and it afforded, me to just go and snowboard and skateboard and do the things I did. But when I was 17, something changed. I saw what I wanted next. On my travels to these contests, I would stop at the local snowboard shops, and one of them in Canandaigua, New York. I remember going in there and I was pitching my clothing and just rah-rahing about snowboarding with the guy. And he says to me, he says, "Hey, do you want to go ride?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, let's do it." And I'm like, when do you get off? And he says, "Oh, we'll go right now." And I kind of just look around the shop and I'm like thinking to myself, you're the only one here. How are you going to do that? And I said that. I said, "Someone coming in?" He's like, no, we'll just close the shop. We'll go. I swear a bomb blew off in my head. I'm like, wait, what? You can just leave?
Yeah.
Because that was foreign to me. I'd only worked jobs up to this point. I didn't know like that was possible. And he did. And we went riding, and I came home, and like, that was it, man. Fat man board shops was going to be a thing. So it took about a year, 17 to 18, for me to do the business plans, go to banks, hear enough no's to almost give up. And my mom, that one that taught me to dream, saw me about to give up on this. And she knew I had this pending loan with this bank, but they needed collateral. The only collateral I had was that KX 125, an 86 Buick Skyhawk, and a baseball card collection. And they weren't exactly having that collateral.
Right.
So my mom did something that, I still today can't believe she did. She put her house on the line.
Wow.
The only thing she had in the world, because she got it in the divorce, was this house. And she put that thing on the line so that I could chase my dreams. The Fat Man Board Shops, if anyone on here looks it up, it's PHAT. That business still exists. It's one of my first legacies I've ever created. It's well over 20 years. We opened November 94. I sold it in 2010, but like, that's just sometimes what a dream can become. And I did that. I was literally 17 turning 18. We opened November 94, which would have been a couple of months after I turned 18 years old. And what an awesome thing. But
yeah,
you also can get yourself in a point where you're living in a fantasy land. And I had my stores going. All my friends worked with me. We went skateboarding and snowboarding, and everything was going so good. And early 2000s, I had 3 locations. I was a pro snowboarder at this point. And that's what I mean by fairy tale land. Like, literally, like I don't think I could have painted a more perfect white unicorn of what I wanted my life to look like at that point. Driving to my newest store one afternoon, on the radio, I hear of a plane crashing into a tower, and then another one. And we all know that to be 9/11.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know was what came next, which was the recession, the .com crash. Now, I'm in my early 20s. I'm somewhat highly leveraged because opening stores, took loans, and I had never in my life seen a recession. And I want to kind of parallel that to right now. If you're under 38 years old, you've never seen a recession either, just like I'm going to talk about what happened next. And most people under 38 have no idea what a recession means, what it does, how it rips families and businesses apart. And it did just that. It literally brought me to my knees, and I had to get a job. And I applied a couple pizza places for delivery, Little Caesars to be specific, and they weren't hiring. Because the other thing during recession is, I guess, people don't have money to buy pizzas or anything else. So all the jobs you see with help wanted signs, those aren't there during a recession. And I couldn't get a job, and I needed one badly because my stores didn't have the money to help pay me anymore. So just like most of what we learn in life, we're taught to pay everybody else first, and then we pay ourselves last. Well, that was true. My pay was, I know people are going to laugh, was I think $200 or $250 a week. That's my paycheck I took from our stores.
Wow.
And but back then that was enough, and I couldn't take that anymore. So what ended up happening next is I put resumes out, and the only people that called me were Wall Street firms. So now we transition, like you had mentioned, from, snowboarder to money mogul, if you will. And, that's maybe a far-fetched thing in the beginning. But when I got into Wall Street, I'd never understood anything about stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I'm just a snowboarder. And now all of a sudden I learned all this, got all my licenses. So I guess I was smart enough to get licensed, and sitting there in the bullpen, that loud place that you've all seen on TV. And I remember looking at the glass offices around. I remember I'm just inherently a visionary and a dreamer because that's how I grew up. And I'm dreaming of what does it take for me to have one of those? Because I knew those guys made a lot of money. Yeah. So I just watched, and this is something like, in apartments, right? If you just looked at the top guys doing apartment buildings, right? And you just reverse engineered it. You just said, how did they get there? And then you said, all right, how would I do it faster? I did the same thing when I got there. I said, I want one of those. How do I do this faster? So here's what I witnessed. They got there about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. They'd work till lunch. They'd go on 2-hour lunches almost every day, sometimes just to the cafeteria, other times out for a beer or a drink. And they'd come back and then they were gone. Gone, ghost town by 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I literally just said, okay, if I get here at 7, I work through lunch. And when they go home, I go to people's kitchen tables and I talk to them about their finances. That's how I did it. And I became one of the top 3 financial advisors. I was still a pro snowboarder. I still had my stores, but an interesting thing happened is, Tate, you probably know this. When in a business, every business owner has to make a decision if they're going to work in the business or they're going to work on it.
Yeah.
Many business owners never make that transition. They never find a way to work on their business because they get stuck in it. Restaurants and so many businesses, you and I both know, they're working in their business and it's almost like a trap. It's a curse. Yeah. Well, I was in the business. Nobody could do anything better than me in my business until I wasn't in the business anymore. And then I realized something. I started just working on the business, the marketing, the game plan, the culture, and my business, Fat Man, flourished. And I'm making a bunch of money in Wall Street while my business is doing better than it ever did before. And it was not because of anything other than I empowered people to do what I did, and they did it better than I did. So that was a really cool transition. But let me just kind of wrap this story. 2008 was really difficult for me, the Great Recession. Yeah. I had just bought in a strip mall. I was developing it into a 3-unit shopping center where my main store was going to be moved, and the bottom fell out of the markets. We all remember, or hopefully, actually many of you probably don't, 2008, the Great Recession, the closest this country's ever come to a complete financial collapse. And along with that financial collapse came a collapse of my financial business. I mean, nobody was buying financial products during the Great Recession. My retail stores basically tumbled down, and I got myself in a really tough pickle. I was literally one payment away to bankruptcy. If it wasn't for my girlfriend who moved into my house, who's now my wife, paying the utility, paying the mortgage, and letting me move friends into my house to pay rent, like I never would have made it through. But I learned something interesting, which parallels to everything you talk about, is all my wealthiest clients that I dealt with in the financial world and that I knew were all in real estate. But I saw something different between them and every other client. During the Great Recession, some of my real estate clients got wealthier. And I don't mean by a little bit. I mean like substantially wealthier. Yeah. And I witnessed this. I had a front row seat to watch this. I'm losing everything, and these guys are getting richer and wealthier. And I'm like, whoa, what am I doing wrong? So I literally dove into real estate, and I started buying apartment buildings in 2009. I mean, for all intents and purposes, folks, there wasn't a better time in history to buy real estate than 2009, 10, 11, 12, and I could even go up to 14. And that's exactly what I did. But here's where I screwed the pooch. I did it all wrong. I never got mentored. I never really understood it. I just went into it. And in 14, the bank that was funding all my deals personally, because I went to the bank and they're like, well, we can do a commercial loan. I'm like, cool. All right. And then, or we can do it in your name. But if we do it in your name, it's like 1.5% less. I'm like, yeah, just do it in my name. Like I was literally thinking cheaper was better.
Right.
Well, in 14, that cheaper is better model made it so the bank said no and froze my lines of credit. And that was a downward spiral. I had to sell off all 36 properties that I had, including my dream house that I had bought with Larissa. And I entered the deepest, darkest period of time in my life. The time where you start having those bad thoughts at night before you go to bed. Larissa had moved out and we split and things just got really bad. And I remember I got a postcard in the mail and it said, come to this seminar to learn how to flip houses. I didn't want to, you're laughing. I didn't want to go. I mean, I just lost it all. But on the back of the postcard, it said, come to the seminar and we'll give you an iPod shuffle. So I went and I met 2 guys, Mike and Greg, who were rock stars, incredibly wealthy. And they taught me a lot of the principles, or at least set the stage for all the things that I do today, which is, Greg, from that stage, I remember the key words he said. He said, the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. I had no clue what he did. To me, that meant, hey, honey, we got to flip hundreds of houses, which we did, 272 to date, flip hundreds of houses, make millions of dollars so that we then can be the bank like Greg and lend money out. But see, that was, remember earlier in my bio, you said, it's not about your resources. Right. It's about how resourceful you can get. That's what I didn't know. And today I teach tens of thousands of people how to be the bank. And, the rest of it, you told the intro. So that's yeah, I'm sorry I went long on that, a little bit of my upbringing.
No, that's great stuff. And, a lot to unpack there. First thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned earlier that you sold your stores in 2010. Was that kind of part of all of the fallout from the recession and whatnot?
Yeah, fallout from the recession, fallout of your mindset and that abundant mindset. I literally felt like because I was in these tough times and I was starting to transition into real estate, I had to shed everything I knew before, which whether it was good or bad, and it was a necessary thing. I don't know if I would have pulled through if I didn't sell the stores, and because I had incurred a ton of debt with the stores to my vendors, and I didn't know how I was going to pay it back. So I went into emergency zone and I sold the stores. In 14, I sold that plaza, and I did really well on that. That helped me a lot, during that period. But you can see, during those hard times, 2008 created a hard time. I sold my stores because of that. My baby, if you will. And then in 2014, when I started losing everything, I went back into emergency mode and I sold that plaza. That plaza today would be worth millions of dollars. And I sold it for like 700 and I don't know, I think about 700,000. I would have gotten so much more, but hey, you live and learn.
Right. And you do what you got to do at the time. And you mentioned, you went into this deep, dark place, which I think, almost everybody that has had major success in life can relate to going through, kind of a dark night of the soul, if you will, where things just crash and don't work out. And it's almost a reset button that you got to hit if you're going to be resilient and bounce back. And I love your emphasis on resourcefulness because when you look at, I encourage people on the show to look at what their superpower is in life and what they're naturally good at. And for me, it's always been resourcefulness. It's always been supported by this core belief that if it can be done, if it can be found, if it can be achieved, then I can do it somehow. And
almost straight out of Napoleon Hills.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Drink and grow richer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
If you can believe it, you can achieve it, or something along those lines. And yeah, it's resourcefulness in the entrepreneurial world is key. And it starts with the belief, right? It starts with the belief that if somebody else can do it, I can do it. And if somebody else can find this capital or this resource, then I can go out and do it. And if you have that core belief, it's like so many other things in life that if you believe it, you can achieve it, right? Just right out of Napoleon Hill again. So I love that. Let's talk about your, your quote unquote recovery or your resilience after that period of time. You got into the money mogul scene, so to speak, and became that. What else was involved in kind of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and getting to the next chapter?
Yeah, it was a deep, dark circle down too. I mean, anybody that's been through one of those periods where you have it and then you lose it, and then if you get the luxury of going through it again, where you have it again and you lose it all again, like that second one's a doozy, and it was a real doozy. I remember it got so bad that when I was shedding off all those assets, selling the apartment buildings, selling 171 Radcliffe, which was that dream house that me and Larissa had bought, and then us splitting. I'll never forget the moment sitting in the bedroom, and Larissa was already gone. And I had gotten to the point where I just wanted everything gone. I was going to go to Thailand for a month just to find myself. And I posted all my bedroom set and my dressers on Craigslist. Wow. And I remember watching the guy and his wife come in and walk out with my bed. And that was the moment where it hit me the hardest. I think I just hit my knees and started bawling. I literally felt like the most worthless piece of crap that could do nothing right. And I think what helped me climb out, listen, if I were to sit here and I could lie to everybody and say, oh, I wasn't going to quit. No, man, I wanted nothing more than to quit. I really did. I just wanted the pain to stop. I just wanted to quit. But I don't know, sometimes the universe takes over and it wouldn't let me. and, that postcard and these other people that came into my life, shortly thereafter. What pulled me out was not me. It was the network, the other people that I was surrounding myself with at that time. Because if I was still hanging out with the Wall Street guys and everybody else, I don't know what would have happened. I wouldn't have been here. So it was just the couple key people who believed in me. I don't know why they did believe in me at that point. And just key little things they said. Sometimes it's not how much you say to somebody. It's just that one thing that somebody hangs on. I was hanging on by a pinky, folks. And, when I remember when Greg said, the things he did, I reached up and I'm hanging on by 2 fingers. And then, Mike might've said one other thing. I'm hanging on by 3 now. Each one was just one more finger that I'm holding on by. And it was just a slow climb out. It wasn't fast. And I went so many different ways. I did this, I did that. I didn't have focus. And that's, I think, why I'm where I'm at today is I am hyper focused on solving other people's problems. And I do it very well. And I stay in my lane. But back then I had lots of lanes. I was just almost like doing the shotgun approach. But each one of those little shotgun approach things taught me something else, put me in contact with one other person that I needed. And that's how I did it. It wasn't it wasn't like, a hockey stick recovery. Yeah. It was a very slow, bumpy, difficult road out.
Yeah. And you didn't quit. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's why you're still here and why you're doing what you're doing now is in spite of wanting to quit and literally losing the bed that you're sleeping in, you didn't quit. And you had that pinky finger hold on not quitting. And then it became 2 fingers and then it became 3 fingers. And like you said, it's the universe sometimes that just kind of pulls through for us and gives us what we need right at the right time, whether it's a suggestion or a thought or an encouragement from someone else. And those are the things that get us through the darkest times. And for me, it's I've been through a couple really dark periods professionally as well. And one in particular, where we were building some luxury townhomes in downtown Salt Lake City, and we were way upside down in them, and we knew it, and yet we were still a year away from finishing them construction wise. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel when you're in that situation, when you're looking down the barrel of, $500,000 to $1 million in losses. And yet you still have to work your tail off just to get to the finish line, just to incur the loss. Like, that's brutal. That's a brutal place to be. And for me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Like, it required at the end of the day, like when I was in that spot, it required one of 2 things. It either required that I quit, or it required that I adopt a position of faith that things were going to work out. And by faith, for me, it wasn't necessarily a religious thing. It was, or anything related to that as much as it was, I guess it was kind of, spiritual in a way, because it was taking a look at like my whole life. And, at that point, the 45 years or so that I had been around, and going, you know what, like, man, for 45 years, even when things looked darkest, like, things ended up working out. And I'm just going to go on that this is somehow going to work out. I don't know how, and I don't know how it's going to all play out, because there's no light at the end of the tunnel right now. But I'm just going on this. And as leader of the company that I own, I had to, like, as captain of the ship, man, if you give up, you're doomed. And so is everybody else around you. And so, for you, Chris, what, was that a component as well? Like, I'd be interested in learning a little bit about your psychology and your spirituality around that period of time, and your ability to be so resilient and come out so successfully.
Well, there was a lot of books that played a part in that. And I've always been a very faithful man. I believe every morning, one of my first things I do is get on my knees and thank God for the day. So nice. I've always had that aspect. I have sometimes questioned that during those dark times of, like, you start asking those dumb questions like, why would you let this happen to me? But, they were very short lived. And I think we all go through those moments where we just question, just the higher power. And I never gave up on that, though. That was never anything that was in question. But I also started studying other things. Like I during that really hard time, I started meditating, studying Buddhism, and just trying to get out there and experience different things that allowed me to just calm my mind, because my mind was always my problem. And I'm not going to say, I think when I had my stores, I was a good leader. I led from the front always. But I went through a period of time when in that transition when I was in Wall Street where I really didn't. I went through a very egotistical period of time in my life where when I was making a lot of money, I allowed my ego to get into it, the material things, the cars, the houses. And that took me down a really difficult thing. And I contribute that one thing, me not focusing on others, me just focusing on me. Everything I did was for me to get something. And that's when everything was stripped from me. So you can tie that into the spiritual side of things and just straight up universal laws. No matter what your audience and anyone listening to this believes, like there are very profound universal laws that we all must abide by. And if we don't, you're going to ride that roller coaster I did. I promise you, it is not speculation, folks. And my lack of following that one law of putting others first and giving, turned into me giving everything away and having to have everything sucked away from me, really, is I think a better way. And I think until you learn the simple laws of, I'm in the money space. So I speak specifically about 6 laws of wealth. And they're not what you think, they're not speculative. They're like the law of gravity. If you jump off your building, you're going to learn what a law really is quick.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Right.
You're not going to fly. You're not going to change it. You're not going to bend it and will it. You're just going to hit the ground. Well, the same thing happens in wealth, and they've been around since before Christ. They've been around since the beginning of time, folks. Read The Richest Man in Babylon. If you can understand it, I've literally deciphered that entire book, and that's how I've created the 6 laws of wealth. And today I just follow them. They're so simple, but they're so simple. So many people ignore them because they don't believe that it's that simple. Folks, everything you want in life hides behind one simple law. And I can tell you, it's the 5th law of wealth. If you just applied the 5th, now you really can't, you got to apply them all. But if you just applied the 5th law, which is basically the act of giving or the act of solving other people's problems. And I won't get into the specifics of it, but it's simple. If you go at every day from the second you wake up to the second you go to sleep with one common focus, and that is to solve somebody else's problem, you'll never have problems. Or the problems you have will be very quickly resolved. I know you don't believe me. I don't care if you do or not. I am living proof, and there are too many others to ignore. That is the one thing I will tell you that will set you free. And I mean, here's a simple task. So let me just give your audience this. This is something so tangible that all of you can do that will begin the process of changing that one thing. All of you in the mail get those envelopes that come. And they're always asking for something from you, right? A donation. We've all got them. They come with nickels, calendars, the little return, address things. You've seen them all. What do you do with those? Most people get them, have a little thought in their head. Usually it's like, oh, here they are asking for money again. You rip it up and you throw it in the garbage. Try this. Stop ripping them up. Every one you get, every week, do this weekly. Save them in a stack, okay? And at the end of the week, take 10 minutes, grab your checkbook. Some of you probably don't even have checkbooks, which shows my age, but get a checkbook, please. This is an important thing. Get a checkbook and physically just don't look at who it's to. Don't let your emotions get involved. This is strictly a logical play. Just go through the motions and just check how much do you feel like giving at that very moment. $1, $5, $10. I don't care what it is. And write the check out. Put it in the envelope. Put it down, mail it. Don't even think about anything else. Move on to the next.
Nice.
What you're participating in by doing that is the act of giving. Eventually, what will happen is you'll start looking at the names of the people you're giving to, and you won't focus on the person, what they're asking for, what they gave you. You'll focus on this $10 might pay for a bowl of soup for some gentleman that is on that last finger. This $10 might allow for clean drinking water for one day for a family. You start thinking about the problem that $1, $5, $10, $100 solves. When you focus on that every day or just once a week to start, your whole perception on life will change. I promise you, like it will. But the second you start, because as you start, here's what will happen. As you start sending these checks out, you get on this master list and you'll start getting more. Be grateful for more. You're going to get so many that you're not going to be able to just write them all. So then you might actually have someone in your family. And I would, if you have a child, have them start writing the checks and explain to them what the goal is, like what problem that check they're writing or helping you write solves. Folks, this is how we change the future. This is how we change the next generation. It's not by the Lambo in the garage, not by, oh, I've got 500 units. How many you got? Small little acts change everything, folks. So I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but there's nothing more important I can teach your audience than that. Yeah. I can teach all of you how to become wealthy. I can teach you how to change one thing and it will change everything. I can teach you how to do what the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and every wealthy family in history has done. And it involves changing one thing. But if you can't understand that piece that I just told you, none of it matters. And I'm not even going to waste my time trying to teach you anything because you don't understand why you do what you do and why you're here.
I love it. I love it. And, you've got so much in your background and in your experience and what you're up to now that we, like you said, we could be talking about, that's other than this, but like you said, there's really nothing more important than understanding these universal laws that either serve us or don't, right? Like gravity is it, like you use that example. It's a great example of like, you can't change that law, right? It is what it is. And you can embrace it and use it to your advantage and leverage it, or you can suffer by ignoring it and acting in spite of it. And this law of contribution or active giving, as you call it, is really the basis of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, because
100%.
The bigger problems you solve, the better things work out for you, whether you measure that in the money that you make or your net worth or just the amount of lives that you can touch and inspire and make a difference for. And look, like for that, it may seem trivial, but you mentioned that bowl of soup for that guy hanging on by a pinky. Like that's everything to that guy, right? Like
maybe that guy would have been me, or maybe that guy was somebody listening. Think about it from that perception.
Yeah, absolutely. It almost makes me a little emotional. Think about it, because for us, writing a $10 check is, it seems trivial. It seems something like something that it's not a big deal, right? It's like, this check might go get lost somewhere in the admin budget of some nonprofit or whatever. But I mean, that's the cynical way of looking at it. The hopeful and optimistic and entrepreneurial way of looking at it is I just solved somebody's problem.
Bingo.
And I think another part of that law, and you may have some more eloquent way of saying this, but another part of that law is like that never is lost on the universe. Like, that difference that you made comes back. It really comes back to you and your your path, and it becomes a contribution to you and what you're up to. So I love it.
And I don't think there's a proper way to explain that. I don't think there's a book that can explain it. I don't think the Bible, the Book of Mormon, I don't think any of the books can fully explain that. I don't know if there's words that will ever explain that. But the other thing too, when it comes down to like how you said, $10 is trivial. For most of your listeners, $10 is probably, you're probably saying, it's not the $10. It's not the dollar. I don't care whether it's $1, $100, whatever's in your heart, that's what you give. And I'll be honest, most of the checks I write, so those are relatively small because I'm writing, my stacks are very large now. I'm on a lot of lists. But here's what you need to understand when it comes to like how you'll be judged. It's not the dollar amount. Doesn't matter if it's $1 on that check. You know what you had to do to write that check to give? Your time had to be given into it. How much is your time worth? Now, let me correct you. I'm not going to ask you what your time's worth because we have been brought up with the biggest lie. We've been brought up to believe lies about money. Almost everything you know about money is a lie. And we've also been brought up to believe one major lie, which I am trying to fight and teach people around, is we are literally taught to trade hours for dollars. We're taught to put a dollar value on our hours. Oh, if I'm going to go to work, I got to make $100 an hour. You're underpricing yourself. I don't care how many zeros you add, you're underpricing yourself because your hour is simply priceless. You can always make more money. You're all very good at making money if you're in the real estate space. You are. And if you're not, you will be. Don't you worry about that. Yeah. But it's not the dollars that we need to focus on. It's the time, because that time you'll never get back. Right. We have 24 hours in the day and we have so few hours to trade. And eventually when as you get older and older, you start to learn this, but it's too late when you start getting the wisdom to understand that it was the time that was the thing that I gave too easily, not the money.
Yeah, I love it. It's by far the most precious resource we have. And like you said, we all only have 24 hours, whether you're Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs or Chris Naugle or Tate Siemer. Like, we all have the exact same amount of resource when it comes to time. And I brought up those examples of people that like, you know, the Elons and Steve Jobs of the world that are able to, you know, by all outward appearances, achieve so much in the amount of time that they have. And they're so effective at maximizing and leveraging time and leveraging other resources as well. And it's worth thinking about, because we all have that in us. You know, we all have that seed of excellence, if you will, you know, inside of us. We all have that possibility. And I think in the entrepreneurial venture, I think a lot of people, probably a lot of the listeners, got into this space because of the money, right? Like, and for them and maybe for me too, like, the money meant freedom. The money meant time freedom, geographic freedom, freedom of association, and you know, financial freedom as well. And like, that's all well and good, but if you put the horse before the cart and go, you know, what my mission is to serve others and to give and to contribute and be be the best version of me that I can be, so that other people benefit and I can bring other people along with me and get the joy out of watching other people be successful. Man, that's like, those are powerful ingredients for success, if you ask me.
I agree. And as you make more and more money throughout your life and throughout your businesses, it just gives you more, the money, that tool gives you the ability to go out and solve more problems for people. I think, you know, the massive success that I've had is solely due to, because I understand every day I wake up, whatever I do is there to solve a problem. And every podcast I do, I never had to have a hidden agenda or like something that I want to get out. I think if I can just solve one person's problem, and you never know what the problems are. So you just throw it out there, you cast a wider and wider net, and that's it. What problem can I solve today? Yeah. And every business that I do and every business you do, Tate, and everyone we know that runs a business, if they're successful, their business solves a really big problem. Yeah. That's it. And, you know, right down to the line, let me give you this one. Think of the worst possible job you can think of. And I guess, you know, for me, I always think of like the guys at a garbage facility that have to sort through the trash, you know, when it gets dumped on the conveyor belts. Because, you know, what do you put in the trash? Every once in a while, a poopy diaper doesn't go in the right bag and it just gets thrown in there. You get the drift. So these folks that work on that line, they're probably paid decent, but not enough. And I want to just paint the picture, because I'm going to really sum up what I mean by this. There's two guys working that shitty job, and their job is to sort through all the garbage to make sure only the right recycling stuff goes on and everything else has to be taken out, and everything else can be the most disgusting things. And the one guy on the one side, every day he wakes up, he hates up. Oh, I got to go to work. You know, can't wait till the day finishes, complains the entire day, stretches his lunch break as long as he can. If he shows up on time, that's a good day. He's always a little late because he just hates it. Yeah. And he goes through every day of his life like that. And then on the other side of the conveyor belt is another guy. Okay. And this guy every day is whistling. He's happy. He shows up early. He leaves a little late, never takes too long of a lunch break. And his job's identical.
Mm-hmm.
So why is one happy and one not? I'll sum it up because it's very simple. And it goes back to Earl Nightingale's strangest secret in the world. The one guy on the side that's whistling and happy and shows up for this crappy job every day, you know what he understands? He understands the problem he's solving.
Mm-hmm.
He's going through a poopy diaper, puts his hand in it, gets it all over his hand. He's like, somebody accidentally made the mistake, throws it away, changes his glove, continues on. Because you know what he knows? He knows that his job of recycling is solving a world problem. He knows that every box that he lets go through, every time he allows that to go through, the problem he solves is one less tree gets cut down, and then two, and then a forest is saved. He understands the problem he solves. Yeah. And the other guy doesn't understand the problem because the other guy's only problem is, if you ask him, why do you go to work every day? I got bills to pay. His problem is the only problem he's focused on solving. You know what happens for the one guy that's angry and the other guy that's happy? You know what happens? The guy that's happy, you know where he ends up? He climbs the rank in that company. And you know who he is now? The CEO.
Yeah.
He wasn't educated to be the CEO, but he had the vision and he also had the right mindset. He solved the problem. And he now has the ability to solve literally world problems. It's the difference.
Yeah. And CEO is really one step away from ownership, if you think about it. And to me, ownership is there's the two different mentalities in the world, the mentality of owner and mentality of employee. And if you understand, like, I love this example that you illustrated, Chris, because if you understand the purpose behind what you're doing and the big picture and the problems you're solving, you already have an ownership mentality. You already get that you're serving a bigger purpose here and you're serving other people. And an employee mentality is more like, how can I do really as little work as possible and make the most money and serve myself the best, right? And I don't mean to devalue or denigrate employees or employee mentality at all, because the world needs good employees and good worker bees, so to speak. And I know a lot of them and respect them all and wish them all well and wish them happiness. But chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, that's not who you are. You've got the ownership mentality, the ownership mindset that is so key and important to to success and to leveling up and to getting to that next chapter. And in Chris's case, recovering from a massive downturn in life. And if you're an employee, like you went back to work, Chris, you took a job on Wall Street and essentially embraced the role of an employee. But my impression of you is that you never lost touch with kind of that ownership role, that I'm solving problems here. I'm solving big problems here in the case of managing.
I did lose sight of it, though. I wish I could say I didn't. I did. Remember I said I went through that egotistical period. That's when I lost sight of it. I went to that period where, like, the job, the thing that provided me all this money, became about me solving my problems. And that's when I told you the story. That's when I lost it all. Yeah. And, like 2000, whether it's the 2008 one or the 2014 one, that period of time was all me, Chris, me, bigger. I got caught up in that. But you see, like, that's the period of times where everything fleed me. Yeah. And I had hard lessons to learn. If I could just go back in time, and talk to my younger self, I would tell my younger self to rethink money and rethink these things. But unfortunately, we don't have the ability to go back in time. So for me today, my legacy, is my biggest opportunity. And my legacy is my daughter. She's 2 years old. She will be taught these things. That's my greatest opportunity in life. And also my single biggest legacy in life is to pass knowledge like this on to the next generation. Because if we don't, I hate to say it, like, we are spiraling out of control. And we need to find some different leadership too, because, when I think of leadership, I think of a pack of wolves. And we've all seen this photo on social media, the head alpha wolf out in front, trudging through heavy, thick, deep snow. You all know how hard that is. If you live in Utah or like us, have ever been in Powell, like, you know how hard that is.
Absolutely.
You're hiking up to get to that peak where you want to drop, man. That 100 feet might just as well be 10 miles. Well, that's no different for that lead alpha wolf. That wolf has fought its entire life to be the alpha. And it's out in front doing the hardest freaking job of the entire pack. And until that alpha wolf is so tired and is ready to then let the next in line, the next strongest wolf, the next one that will be the alpha take over, that's leadership.
Yeah.
You got a business, folks, never forget that photo, because that's what a leadership role looks like. Don't model leadership after governments, because that is the role of in the ancient day of slavery, where they sit in the back and everybody's out in front working. And I hate to see it, but you know what? We can't change things we can't change. We can change the life we live and the people that we lead. And it has to be from out front, folks. There's no other way. You just got to go through it.
Yeah. You're reminding me of the book Leaders Eat Last.
I haven't read that. Let me write that down.
Yeah. I can't remember the author's name at the moment, but it's all about that. It's all about, the title says it all, right? Like, we lead from the front by bringing other people along with us, and we're taking the last of the benefit from our efforts and from our team's efforts. Really, it's not because of design as much as it is out of focus, right? Like, we're basically focused on other people, on solving other people's problems. And guess what? As far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure there's some great quotes around this, but that's really where the joy in life comes from, is seeing other people happy, seeing other people successful, seeing other people level up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tate, let me just pause. I gotta tell you this. Like, this is so real to me right now. And let me tell you a story. So I have an unbelievable team, and, we have our money mentors that are out there, frontline doing all the calls. Now all my money mentors make a lot of money, but I have one guy, he's a real estate investor who, kind of started as a client, became, a money mentor for me. And this year he'll make probably, right now is just about $1 million. So he might make over $1 million. And my entire team knows this, and everybody like pats him on the butt. That nobody's mad at that. And my wife, hears this, and she my wife, nothing wrong with it, but she's not in the business. And she says, well, how come you're not making as much as him? How come you're not making as much as Devin? And I had to say to my wife, I said, what, Larissa, what you have to understand is I'm just playing a different game. Devin is doing amazing. After she said, do everything you have to support him. And I said, he's playing a different game. He doesn't have staff. He uses our staff. He doesn't have to spend money on marketing. I'm spending money on marketing. But you see, what I'm doing is I'm building an empire. He's building Devin. I said, the game is different, and I'm not chasing dollars. I'm chasing impact. And I said, and the difference in the game is just a few degrees. But if you take an airplane and you just change it a few degrees, the difference is Alaska or San Diego. Like, right. It's a few degrees that makes the difference, folks. And your game you're playing, don't look at other people. Don't model your game off other people unless it's somebody you admire and they've reached the perfect day that you want to get to. Then model how they got there. But don't measure yourself on income or things that they have or cars that you drive. Measure yourself on the impact you're making to the world and to the other people around you. That will take you further, because when you get to that final resting place, you've all heard that, but when you're there and you're no longer here, you're off to a better place, you've graduated, people aren't going to remember the R10. They're not going to remember the house, the money in the bank. They're going to remember the impact you made on them. Yeah. And you know what that impact sometimes is, folks? This is a hard thing for you to realize. You were the person that made them smile.
Yeah.
You were the person that called them out of the blue and just said, hey, I just want to make sure you're doing good. That impact will supersede everything else. So folks, I wanted to get into a lot of money stuff and give you some tangible stuff, but all the stuff that I do is free. I spend probably about $25,000 a month just creating content, and I give it all away for free. And I have people all the time tell me, you're crazy. The stuff you're putting out for free, you could charge 30, 40 grand to coach. And of course I could, but you know what? A wise mentor in 2014, in my hardest point, there's two Gregs in my life, but a different Greg. I went to a mastermind at his house that I couldn't afford. And I remember asking him, I need the best advice you can give me. And Greg leans into me, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, I'm going to give you the best advice I could give anyone. And he says, I'm like, yes, Greg, come on, give it to me. And he says to me, he says, give your best stuff away for free.
Oh,
now,
man.
at the moment, that was like the worst possible thing I could hear. I was like, you son of a bitch. I'm like, that is not what I needed to hear, Greg. But today, that's what I do because that's the impact. So like everything I teach, everything I do, the be your own bank, how to make money twice on your money, how to earn uninterrupted compound interest, how to mimic the wealthy in ways that are profound. Like it's all free. Go to my website, go to YouTube. It's all free on there. So the whole thing is none of that matters if you don't get the things that me and Tate have been talking about today on this podcast, right? Because those are the things that are going to make it so you're not just rich. Because a rich person, you watch, folks, we're going to be entering one of the deepest, darkest periods of time in most of our lives. This next recession will possibly be the next Great Depression. It will be the worst one. And I know that to be a fact. And we're not going to get into it, but you're going to see the richest people you know become the next poor people. But I will tell you the difference between a rich person and a wealthy person comes down to these principles that we talked about here. The wealthy, they have learned how not to give their money back because they've learned the 6 laws of wealth and these universal laws. And that's all they do different. So don't get excited when, or feel jealous or have those emotions when somebody's got something nicer to you or appears to be living a better life. Behind the scenes, they're hollow sometimes. And I'm not referring to, Devin on my team. He's doing awesome things, but don't always judge the book by its cover. Judge the book by its content.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, this has been amazing. What a conversation this has been. I'm thrilled to have been a part of it and to get to learn from you and kind of recalibrate a little bit, even personally, in terms of my sense of purpose and mission in the world. I just love so many of the things that came up here. And we didn't even talk about be your own bank or your businesses, or even the 6 laws of wealth. So with that, what is the best way for listeners to access all this wisdom that you have and this powerful content?
So I learned in 2014, 15-ish, I learned something that profoundly changed my life forever. And it involved me just changing one thing. And that was where my money went first, kind of everything that's surrounded by be your own banker. So I had to watch a 90-minute video back then. I didn't want to watch it. I'm like, 90 minutes. I don't have 90 minutes, but I watched that video and I single-handedly can attribute that one thing to all of the success I have today when it comes to finance and money and wealth. So what I would say to everybody listening, if you want that one thing, and I promise you it's worth every bit of the 90 minutes, then go to chrisnaugle.com. A video will pop up giving you the option to watch a 90-minute video or a 10-part series if you have the attention span of a canary or whatever you want to say. Then you can watch the 10-part in chunks, but watch that 90-minute video and you'll see what that one change is and how that one change will change everything. And then after that, you'll want to either book a call and talk to us. And we don't sell, we just teach and answer. If you want our help, you ask us. It's a weird thing. Like people are always like, oh, what do you sell? I'm like, I don't sell anything. I teach people how to take back control of their money. And then they ask me to do business with them. They literally ask me to help them. Sure. But that's because you lead with the content, you lead with the knowledge, the value. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. And you'll get that value on my website in that 90-minute video, YouTube, resource after resource, all social platforms. I put so much stinking content out. Some people are like, stop. No, actually just keep going. I'm just kidding. It's just a lot. And then, like we talked offline, like Steve Jobs, I'm reading his book for the 5th time, which is insane because it's a heavy book, but I'm preparing myself for what I'm going to be doing next. October 14th, actually out in your backyard, Sundance, right over there at Sundance Resort. October 14th, I'm going to be launching something I've been working on for the better part of a little over 2 years that literally will change the way money works forever. Mm-hmm. If you can think of dating sites or Tinder, right? If you just think of how they work, I literally created a dating site, a Tinder for money. And it will be something that drastically disrupts the banking and financial world to the point where I don't know, I might have to fear whether or not I'm going to float down the Mississippi face down, but I want to invite every single one of you to witness something that will happen once in a lifetime. It'd be the equivalent of you going back and watching Steve Jobs launch the Mac. Mm-hmm. He solved a problem people didn't even know they had. The iPhone solved the problem people didn't even know they had until that problem was brought in front of them. I'm doing the exact same thing, but I'm doing it to money. And I want all of you to be part of that. So it's called Private Money Club. If you want to be part of the launch, it's simple. Grab your phone, and in the top line where it asks for a phone number, put 33777. And then in the little memo line, just type in PMC and hit send. And that will give you the ability to register to see how we're going to change the way money works forever.
What was the 5-digit number again?
33777. 2 3s, 3 7s.
Yeah. And then put in PMC for Private Money Club.
You got it.
And Chris will send you what you need to have for that. And by all means, guys, I'm going to take that 90 minutes and spend it on the video on Chris's website, which is chrisnaugle.com. CHRIS. Naugle is NAUGLE. And go check that out. That sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to it. Dude, awesome stuff. I'm so glad we did this. I do 2 of these a week, and I love them all. They're all like little kids that little creations that I send out in the world. But this has been special. And I love that we didn't really get to like the kind of the meat and potatoes part of your business and what you do, but we really spent time talking about the big picture and the context that all success is achieved within. And I appreciate your vulnerability, sharing with us your dark times and how you got through those. And I appreciate all your success, man. You've been you're a stud. You've really made it happen. And I'm hoping that we get to ski together, ride together at some point.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah. That's gotta happen. That's gotta happen. Matter of fact, I think this time next year, I'll have a satellite office in I think it's Highlands is the place where I'm doing it. So we'll definitely be out there a lot more. I mean, like I said, cool. Salt Lake's my backyard, but it's going to really be my backyard soon.
Cool. Well, I'm here all the time and here to help any way I can, personally and professionally and otherwise. My company's here for you. And so anything we can do to be helpful and in your expansion, your growth, and your path, we're here for that. So, dude, I really appreciate this, that you've been extremely generous with your time and your knowledge and your experience, and can't wait to go back and listen to it again myself. So thanks a ton, Chris. Really great stuff.
Yeah. What an honor. Thank you, Tate.
Yeah, you bet. Listeners, hopefully this made a massive impact on you like it has on me. People like Chris, they show up at the right time in the right context to bless us and to help nurture what we're doing, and consider this is like the universe at work right here. The 2 people coming together, authentically wanting to provide value to you and really help you move the needle in your business and in your personal life and everywhere else. So hopefully you got a ton out of this. We're doing 2 of these a week now, as most of you know. And so we're really trying to get as much value out as we can, as fast as we can here at the Apartment Gurus podcast. And so we appreciate you being along for the ride, and by all means, connect with Chris, reach out and make that connection. And you guys know that I'm always available to connect with as well at investwithgreenlight.com. So on that, Chris, thanks again, brother. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Listeners, thank you. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus. Take care, everybody.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.